Am I the asshole for trying to give my son a reality check? My oldest son Matt, 24, has this issue where he thinks he's the most intelligent person in the room. He refused to go to college and called it a scam. He didn't make that grade of grades in high school and is constantly condescending to everyone. We celebrated my daughter for getting into UCLA. She's very excited about moving to California and starting her degree in August. She's 17, so she still has an optimistic view of the world. Matt starts to say American college is a scam, and good luck with all of your student loan debt. I told Matt he's not the most intelligent man in the room and that honor will never belong to him, and he needs to stop criticizing his siblings all of the time. Matt went upstairs to play video games and has avoided me for 3 days. My wife is upset at me for talking to him like that, but at 24, I'm sick of supporting him. I would love him to move out, but he only works part-time, and my wife won't allow me to kick him out. Not the asshole. Matt, 24, went upstairs to play video games. Enough said. He is smartest enough to scam you for 6 years. Time to ship him out. Not the asshole. Your wife is enabling him. Very sad because he will never develop his talents. Not the asshole sounds like he did need a reality check. As someone with a brother who acts that way but was a high school dropout and constantly criticized me for going to college. Thank you. I wish my parents would have done something like what you did. Plus he's 24 and living at home. I don't know how you're sane still. Also, congrats to your daughter for getting into UCLA, that's hard to do. Not the asshole. Your wife is enabling his failure to launch. At 24 he should have more than a part-time job, especially with places screaming out for staff right now. I recommend sitting your wife and telling her that, by coddling her son, she's creating a man that no one will want to be around. Work out a plan with her to make your contribute significantly to his living costs. Not the asshole, he sounds insufferable. Assholes like that need to get taken down a peg. It's one thing to decide that college isn't for him. It's another to shit on his siblings' choices that don't align with his own. Not the asshole, kick his ass out and see how far his grand intellect takes him. Not the asshole, college is not for everyone. But working PT and playing video games is not proof of intelligence. At 24, if your son is not in college or incapacitated, he should on his own place, not living with you. He at the very least be contributing to the household, paying for his car, insurance, and the rest of his expenses. Am I the asshole for a joke I made during my best month speech? I, 34M, was recently the best man at my friend's, 36M, second wedding. I was also the best man at his first. I saw this joke online and it made me laugh, so I stole it, and for my opening speech I said, "Right, well. Welcome back everyone." Which got more than a few laughs, especially from the bride, 31F, who seemed to find it hilarious. Everything went well. Speech over and done with. Though later on, after a few drinks, my friend began to rip me a new asshole, telling me I was out of line with that kinda joke and how I'd embarrassed him and it wasn't funny and that I shouldn't have brought his last marriage into this. I mean, a best month speech will always be more jokey than anything, and beyond that it was fairly tame, and that was the only reference to his last marriage. Was I really that out of line? YTA. Tell him you're sorry and you won't use it at his next one. Edit. I've gone to sleep and awoke to 12,500 upvotes and 27 awards. Thank you all very kindly. Who knew my smart mouth would ever get me anywhere? Not the asshole. Bride laughed. You're in the clear. Edit. Didn't realize the second paragraph the friend you're referring to was the groom. Op your ta. And you owe a huge apology to the bride and groom. Nah. You weren't very far over the line, and he has the right to be irritated. But if the opportunity comes up again, ask him if it's okay to say, 3D times the charm, am I right? Not the asshole. If you weren't a tad bit embarrassed by your best man's speech, did you really have a best man? Maybe should have ran it through him first. I'd say no assholes here because he has a right to feel how he feels. But also it's a very harmless joke, like it's not out of line and it's quite common. Plus if the bride found it funny, then I don't see the big deal. Not the asshole. Don't have a second wedding. If you're embarrassed, it's a second wedding. Soft. You are the asshole. It obviously upset the groom, which is something you should avoid doing on their wedding day. You didn't say it in a mean or spiteful way though. Not the asshole. I'm with the bride. It was hilarious. Am I the asshole for flushing my period? I, 22 female, have been with my boyfriend, 23 male, for 4-ish months. I stayed with his family for New Year. I got my period a few days earlier than anticipated. My doctor believes I may have endometriosis, as my periods can be particularly heavy and painful. BF has been aware of this since we got together. BF's dad works for a major organization, and had an early start, 4:50 am, the morning after I arrived. I had not been made aware of this until I arrived at the house. I was as quiet as I could be that night, but the next day BF's mum told us that the walking around, shutting the bathroom door, and flushing the toilet had been too loud. She addressed myself and my BF, but we all knew that I'd been the only one who had been using the toilet. This was the first time I'd stayed with, met BF's parents, and I felt awkward defending myself, so I just apologized and she asked that we don't do it again. I told boyfriend that I couldn't not use the toilet in that way, and he said that I should leave the door ajar and cover the blood with toilet paper. I felt uncomfortable with that, and replied that I lose a huge amount of blood during my period and it's not really possible to just hide it. He said that his sister always hid her periods, so I could as well. He didn't understand why I felt uncomfortable leaving the door open whilst using the toilet. I stood my ground and said that my period is difficult, and that I'm not willing to make myself even more uncomfortable during my most vulnerable time of the month. I would be fine to leave the door ajar in most circumstances, but not whilst dealing with brutal periods and not when staying with people who were almost strangers to me. I felt humiliated and uncomfortable. The next night, Dad had another early start the next day, and with clear instructions to not close the door or flush the toilet upstairs, I decided to just use the downstairs toilet. After my third trip in a short space of time, boyfriend asked why I kept going up and down the stairs. He said that the stairs were too loud for me to be using that frequently, and that I should just use the upstairs toilet and hide the blood. I got very upset with him, and we didn't agree on the matter. We both went to sleep feeling angry. After this, I wanted to go home, but boyfriend got upset and asked me to stay because it's not hard to just follow his parents' rules. He believed that his parents were being reasonable, and other than telling his parents that I had my period, he wasn't willing to defend me further. I ended up leaving 2 days later, which upset him further, but I felt too stressed and uncomfortable staying in that environment. He feels that I have overreacted to the whole thing, and I feel that he lacked empathy and didn't support me during a difficult time. He maintains that I was being unreasonable by flushing the toilet. So Reddit. Am I the asshole for flushing my period instead of using toilet paper to hide it? What? Sometimes when I get periods there is blood all over the goddamn bowl. Like splatter from when I sit down, droplets from wiping, etc. If it's heavy like you're talking, you could conceivably block the toilet with that much toilet paper. Not to mention I regularly got loose bowels from period shits. So there's a murder scene and a shit scene all over the bowl. No. Not a way in hell that doesn't get flushed. Not the asshole. Also, what kinda jerk makes their guests piss without privacy? Close the door. Use the toilet normally. Politely and sweetly reply, well, I didn't think you would want a guest to feel uncomfortable in your house? You do need to have a bit of an education session for your partner. I wouldn't advocate dumping him just yet, but wow. Not the asshole, but personally after all of the weirdness about using the toilet and flushing, I would have just left a gross bloody mess for them to see first thing in the morning. Next time rent a motel room where you can flush to your heart's delight. Not the asshole. I read some of these and just think, who are these effing people? I mean, welcome to our house. By the way, toilets can only be used at certain times, and under no circumstances are you to walk around at night. Other than that, please enjoy our home. You should have left first morning after the rules were set. Not the asshole. You just don't criticize your guests for flushing. You assume they flushed because they had to and you don't ask questions. Your BF's parents are extremely rude. Your boyfriend is something worse, as you say, he lacks empathy. Not the asshole. Holy shit. This family is really weird and controlling and unsympathetic, including your BF. Not the asshole. Flushing a toilet and using stairs are normal behavior expected in any house. His parents are bizarrely obsessed with quiet, and I say this as someone who likes a quiet home. They are also being horrible hosts by not accommodating your basic biological needs. Not the asshole. Your boyfriend is the asshole and so is his family. Who ever heard of telling a guest they can't use the bathroom when they need to? Anybody who thinks a person's period should be hidden isn't mature enough for a girlfriend. Not the asshole. He thinks it's reasonable because he grew up with parents who didn't let anyone close the bathroom door or flush the toilet overnight. What anyone else would think is reasonable is for the noise-sensitive person to get some earplugs or run a fan or white noise generator. I wonder what else this family thinks is reasonable in the name of catering to the father this way. Expect to discover more weird stuff like this as you get to know them better. He's going to have a hard time finding anyone else who thinks this stuff is normal. Update. Am I the asshole for telling my sister to stop using nonsense baby talk? Hi everyone, I'm back with an update to my previous post. As I said before, and I feel incredibly vindicated by the judgment and the comments in general, as we are always being told by our mum not to be hard on poor Alana. It's got to the point where we don't rip into her like we do each other, which is a shame as we are English and our primary love language is insults and sarcasm. Anyway, I digress. I got my chance to confront Alana on Saturday evening, when Alana and my mum came over for another round of Jackbox and Alana asked me if I liked her new jump. I replied, "You're what?" and she leveled me with a slightly smug, unblinking stare. My mum jumps in and tells me, she means her jumper, and Alana interrupts her, saying, "She knows what I mean, I can say, jump, if I like." Clearly she had decided to double down, but I had my Reddit voices in my ear and I was prepared. I asked her to stop talking in nonsense words, and she told me that it's a thing that all millennials do, and I needed to get over it, and said that I do it too, and gave Prosec as an example, Prosecco. I disagreed, then told her that I'd been Googling it, translation. I've asked a bunch of Redditors, and that it had made me wonder if she was doing it as a reaction to no longer being the youngest in the family. She was very affronted by this, telling me she had been doing it way longer than the arrival of the kids. I said that she had been doing it much more recently. My mum agreed with me. Alana looked livid at this and kept spluttering that it wasn't the case. I then said that in my Google, Reddit, research I'd read that it could be a comfort for anxiety and asked her if this is what it was. She seemed very annoyed about my trying to diagnose her or make it into an issue. In my opinion she was trying to be cute and funny and I was ruining it with my concern for her well-being. She told me that I was very weird for thinking it's a big deal and for Googling it, and I said I was doing this because she's far too old to be talking like a Yoda baby. I then said that if it wasn't a reaction to anxiety, could she please stop, because it annoys me a lot and I don't want to be annoyed when I hang out with her. Full props to Reddit for my phrasing here. She stared at me in silence for a good 20 seconds. I could see her brain whirring as she tried to calculate a reason to say no, but in the end, my mum quietly interjected with, "That's a reasonable request, isn't it?" and Alana gave a hefty, defeated sigh and said, "Fine." I said, "Thank you," and we swiftly moved on. I'm hopeful that's the end of it. I am so glad I turned to Reddit for this one, as all the advice worked perfectly, and I'm going to try and keep it in mind with my interactions with Alana going forward. I am laughing here. Tears of joy, just the mental image of her sitting there trying to figure out a way of continuing this asshattery while not proclaiming she's in need of therapy. Rolling on the floor laughing. As a millennial, born in 1989, I can assure you I don't baby talk, and feel slightly offended at the suggestion that we all do it. But ripping into my younger brother and sister with sarcasm and insults, I fully understand it's definitely our English love language. Rolling on the floor laughing. Like AF, see King Boss. You outmaneuvered better than Roadrunner outmaneuvers Coyote. Congrats. Me, a millennial, she does not speak for me. We millennials are a tired, broken and debt-ridden people, but we don't do that. Great work, Op. You did good. Your sister is weird as heck though. That Christ, she sounded annoying. She's still annoying as all millennials includes you. Tears of joy. Props to you, Danielle. I'm assuming we're going by Chaim sister aliases here. Weird how yesterday was wedding cake day and today infantile fetishism day. Tears of joy. It feels like the same issues stack up in a short period. Maybe your sister needs to hook up with this guy. I wasn't on your original post, but honestly just reading your description set my teeth on edge. And no, I'm an elder millennial and don't know anyone who talks like that. I'm glad you got her to stop, and I think you nailed it as attention-seeking behavior and compensating for the fact that the "gron" now take away from her being the family baby. That was insightful. Adults using baby talk just freaks me out.